I will call this meeting to order and ask Brenda to take the roll for us.
Okay, give us 1 second. Hi.
Of course. I will ask Brenda to take the roll for us in 1 second.
Sorry. Okay. All right, Board Member Brisky.
Present.
Board Member Freeman.
Present.
Board Member Roth.
Present.
Board Member Ridley.
Present.
Board Member Mercier is absent. Board Member Habernick. Chair Moore.
Present.
Councilmember Russell.
Present.
Councilmember Ward.
Present.
And Mayor Sierra.
Present.
I'm sorry, did we get Ty?
Yeah, he was the first one I did.
All right, my mistake. Great, thank you. Well, and I'd like to extend a welcome to our new board members / council members. You're in for the ride of your life. Next, I'll move to the public forum. Brenda, do we have anyone tonight to speak to the board?
No, we do not.
All right, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5, new business. We'll move on to 5A, and Peter, I assume you're going to lead remotely for this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And again, to all the board members, my apologies for not being there tonight. Like I said, I have COVID right now, so you all probably don't want me in the room anyways. So I figured doing this from my dining room was probably the best way to do this. So the first item that I have tonight to present is the renewal of the contracts for our legal and engineering services. Are those slides up? Okay. So these are our annual contracts with Berg Hill and Martin & Wood, and they are the outside consultants we use to help us with all things water rights, water portfolio, appraisals, things like that. So we go to the next slide. These are the contracts we've had in place for many years. These are the two entities that we have worked with, that Englewood has worked with for many years, and are both providing excellent service to us and have an excellent history in all the bullets that you see there, and provide us the outside consulting services that we need in order to protect and maintain and optimize our water rights portfolio. Next slide. Well, I guess the other thing that we do is we do supply and demand planning. So that's the last piece that I haven't covered. So we have a plan that helps us understand scenarios as it relates to demand planning over time. That's something that Martin Wood spent a significant amount of time working on over the last couple of years in order to help us predict what the future holds and how that future will affect our portfolio. Next slide. They've been, both Berg Hill and Martin & Wood have been with the city for quite some time. There's one of the things with water rights attorneys and engineers is there's so much that goes into the decisions around the court cases that the history that they maintain is as important as the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. So having the rationale and the understanding and the files and the background of why certain stipulations or agreements were made many years ago has proven invaluable as we move into an ever more difficult space as it relates to water rights and the pressure on water rights in the Front Range. They continue to monitor dozens of court cases that Englewood is in one way a party of, whether it's a case that we've initiated, a case that we're an opposer, a status case, those types of things. There's dozens of cases that are ongoing at any one point in time. Next slide. So what we plan to do for 2024 is we'll continue to work on how to strategically optimize the water rights portfolio. We will continue to refine our demand analysis to ensure that as we look at options for how Englewood will evolve as a city over time, that we're ensuring that the water rights portfolio can adapt to that, as well as other things that are outside the city's control, which are changes in yield, climate pressures, all the things that we're seeing that increase the pressure on the water system. Another thing that's out there that has an effect on us. It's not a direct effect, but it'll be an indirect effect. Is whatever happens with the Colorado River, as that issue between the lower basin states and the upper basin states continues to progress. If there is pressure placed on the upper basin states, Englewood is not immune from that pressure. So they also stay abreast of what's going on with that issue, and then ensure that we're protected. You can see the other bullet points there. The final one is finalizing the Centennial Water and Sand water appraisal. I've got a slide on this during the staff's choice at the end, Chair, that I'll go through the results of that. We just actually finally finalized the results of that a week and a half ago, and we initiated that process in February of 2021. So almost 3 years later, we've finally gotten that finished. And so as a result, we expect that Berg Hill will be sending us the invoice for that process that's gone on for quite some time, and we expect that in early 2024. Next slide. You can see the contract amount is $500,000 or $565,000 for 2024. Part of that is because it anticipates that appraisal invoice finally coming through now that process is completely done. And then the Martin Wood, we anticipate a little bit less work this year, so that is dropped down to $375,000. Next slide. Any questions?
I have a question. Pieter, how many cases did Englewood take to water court over the past year?
We took one where we actually tried the case. That's the one where we were partnered with Greeley and Boulder. There were a number of entities that partnered in taking that case. I believe that was in September timeframe. We had another one that was we were about to take to court, and it settled within a couple days of the court starting. So the challenge when they settle right before court starts is you still have to do all the work to be prepared for court, and then it settles, which is actually a great outcome. It's just you don't get to save the cost of preparing for court. Really just get to save the cost of the actual trying the court case.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any more questions for Pieter? All right. Then I will, can I get a motion to recommend that City Council approve by motion Water and Sewer Board Agenda items 5A1 and 5A2 as written?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion?
I got one clarification point. I work with Martin and Wood a fair bit. They're one of our customers in Greeley. Should I not vote on this?
If you feel uncomfortable, you can abstain.
Okay.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, just on the second part.
Okay. I think it's all
Just
together.
on the second part.
Okay.
I'll break it up. Let me redo this. I'll move to amend the motion that's already been made to just pertain to 5A1. if I could get a second for that amendment.
Second.
All right. I'm assuming there's no more discussion. Can I get all in favor of the motion with respect to 5A1, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's see. So now I guess I need another one. Can I repeat that? Can I get a motion to recommend the city council approve by motion water and sewer board agenda item 5A2 as written?
So moved.
Second. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favors, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Ty. All right, those motions carry. The chair used to unintendedly use his prerogative to shift the agenda around. And I'll use it again to correct my prior mistake. If I could step back to item 3 for the approval of the meeting minutes from November 14th, I'd like to take a motion for that.
So moved.
Thank you. A second. All right. Yep, sorry, didn't hear one. Do we get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Obviously, I'll do the people that weren't here at the last meeting. I'll put them as abstained.
Yes, thank you. So all in favor, for those that were in attendance at the last meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Brenda, do we actually have enough to pass that, right?
I believe we do. We need 6.
Okay.
And since Member Anderson is here, thank goodness, we're good.
Okay. Like I said, I think technically we don't have to be that strict, but as long as we can be that strict, let's be that strict. Great. With that, I will once again, use some shuffling around to get us back on target with 5B. And Adam, I believe you're up.
Yep. My name's Adam Marquez. I'm Utilities Engineering Supervisor. And this item is the dewatering centrifuge purchase. So a quick overview of our solids handling process. There are 4 waste streams at the Allen Water Treatment Plant that produce water with high concentrations of particulate matter or solids. Those waste streams all drain to our wash water pump station. The wash water pump station pumps that wastewater to the south reservoir. In the south reservoir, we have a curtain wall that separates the kind of highly compacted solids from the rest of the reservoir. That south reservoir eventually does have a decant that flows to the north reservoir. In the solids inside the south reservoir are dredged out and sent currently to our belt filter press, which was built in the year 2000 and was originally, its intended use is really as a fruit press for orange juice processing. Once the belt filter press mechanically dewaters the solids, they are sent to drying beds. And once they've dried further, they are then hauled away to landfill for final disposal. And so in July of this year, we initiated the solids handling improvements project. We contracted with Hazen and Sawyer to do the preliminary design, including a mass balance analysis and writing equipment specifications, and understanding how we can use our existing dewatering building where the belt press exists for a equipment replacement project. We want to reduce our reliance on our dewatering contractors, and we want to be able to keep up with the solids that the plant is producing. So in order to get ahead on this project, we have decided to do an owner procured centrifuge. So that's a mechanical dewatering piece of equipment that would replace the belt filter press inside the solids handling building. This is a long lead piece of equipment, so we wanted to go ahead and write the specs to purchase the centrifuge ahead of the construction of the project, which would happen once the centrifuge arrives. So Hazen and Sawyer helped us write the specs and write a solicitation, an RFP. And, you know, the specs include installation support, startup services, and training on the equipment. So we issued the RFP in September of 2023. 3 proposals were submitted. We had a 5-member selection committee. And you can see the breakdown of the vendors there. Centrisys was selected as it had the smallest footprint. It gave us the most programming flexibility. The other vendors had more of kind of a black box kind of package deal, so we wouldn't be able to use our existing programmers and contractors in order to customize the equipment. And another issue with Andritz is that it kind of barely fit in our dewatering building. We would have had to make some serious modifications in order to make it work in our existing dewatering building. Andritz also had a higher power demand than Centrisys. So overall, considering all the criteria, best value, we selected Centrisys for a total contract authorization of $680,000 with a staff managed contingency that brings us up to $748,000. Those may be used. The contingency may be used if we decide that there's additional training that's required or installation support during construction. Any questions?
Can I just ask how this centrifuge works? Is it you manually take like the sludge and put it in there? Or is this like a full-time, is there an operator for this thing or multiple operators?
Yes, so the current system, it's very similar to our current system. So the operation hopefully won't change too much. Basically it's dredged out of the South Reservoir, sent to this mechanical dewatering equipment where it basically, separates the liquids from the solids. It's a much more efficient process. So the belt filter press could do about 50 gallons per minute. This can do about 220 gallons per minute. Then it gets put onto a conveyor belt and dumped outside of the building where it can then be hauled off.
So we anticipate that this, multiplying, being able to do 4 times as much, we'll be able to get caught up on
Absolutely, and that is one of the primary goals. Yeah.
And won't have to use contractors anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, if I may chime in on that. So we use the contractors for the first 2 years to essentially buy us some volume to get it, because we were they're so full that we wanted to at least get some of the solids out of there so that we could, at the rate that we produce solids, we could have enough volume such that we could build this more permanent system. This permanent system is much more, it's simpler, it's more reliable. We'll run it longer, we'll run it more times of the year. And as Adam said, it produces at about 4 times just in and of itself. These actually are the same centrifuges that we have over at South Platte Renew. So we've used this exact centrifuge for many, many years over there. So we have experience. The city has experience through South Platte Renew with using this centrifuge, and they're very reliable in doing exactly what we need for that south pond, which is getting it empty of the solids. Because the solids, what we're finding out as Zach, our treatment manager, is investigating where all the sources of taste, odor, and hardness are coming from. The decan of the water from the south plant to the south pond to the north pond, and all the solids that are impacting that, is actually having an adverse impact on taste, odor, and hardness. So this is one of those prongs of the multi-pronged approach to addressing taste, odor, and hardness is getting that south reservoir empty, and this will do it.
Do we still have to use the drying beds for a period of time before it's hauled away?
Yes and no. It does. So the centrifuge produces something that's about 25% solids by mass, so it still is holding water. So it does help to allow that to dry off before it hauls off. It saves on your hauling costs so that you're not paying to haul away water.
But will we not have to store it as long?
We would
Yeah.
not have to store it as long because it'll be much higher concentration.
So what's different than what's happened in the past is, and this happened prior to when I got here, but solids would get stored for extended periods of time. We now have a separate trucking contract that is set up so that we produce solids, we dry them back behind the building for 30 or 45 days. And then as soon as we have enough for a set of loads to go out to the landfill, we'll hire the contract that we'll get the trucking contractor in to pull those out. We're not going to be in a situation where we have a mountain of solids for extended periods of time, because that's just not an appropriate way to dewater and eliminate these solids. We're going to have a lot of solids to haul off over the next couple of years as we empty that pond, but we plan to do that in a more continual basis so that they don't build up to something that's a really substantial issue and a mountain of solids.
And do we also have to test them?
Yeah.
The solids before we haul them away?
Yeah, so we do test them, and our current testing on them, I believe we have to test them annually. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Josh or,
Yep.
or Adam. Our current testing shows that they are non-hazardous, and so by being non-hazardous, we can just take them to a normal landfill. However, this is one of those places where it's unknown as to what the PFAS regulations are going to be in the future, and so frankly, it benefits us to empty that as much as possible while they are still considered non-hazardous, so that it's less expensive for the city to dispose of them. If down the road the EPA determines that solids that have PFAS are somehow designated a different that they need to go to a different landfill, that's gonna cause us to go back and figure out how to address it. So doing this before the regulatory landscape changes, I think is most prudent for the city right now. Plus, it's just something that we need to do.
So do we know how much of the PFAS is coming out in the solids?
We've not sampled for that.
We've not sampled that currently.
Yeah, I don't think we've sampled the solids yet.
What accounts for the difference now, them being regarded as safe and going to a normal landfill, when 5 years or so ago they were full of T-norms and had to go to a special landfill?
So the T-norm issue is, that's what we test for now, is the T-norm, and our testing shows that they are under the levels that they're under the levels that would trigger a T-norm landfill. The previous years, several years ago, when they were built up, and there was I don't have the history on that in terms of whether they actually were T-norm or whether they had to go to a T-norm landfill, or there was a concern that they were going to have to go to a T-norm landfill, so they weren't sent to a landfill. What we know is we tested them and they qualify for a normal landfill.
Yep. The regulation also was relaxed
Okay.
for T-norm disposal.
Okay.
But is it also dependent on where we get the water source from too? I mean, if we're using Big Dry Creek less, there may not be as many radioactive.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, that's an interesting thing that as we start to evolve how we take water from City Ditch and Union Ave, it'd be a nice trend to study to see if it does actually cause a reduction in those T-norm levels in the solids. It's a good thing that we could, I'm sure Zach would love to study this kind of data because that's right up his alley. Josh, can you make sure that he gets that as a thing to look for?
I've already determined that's the next step for us. So.
I'm sorry, I still don't have an arm to raise to ask the question. I'm hoping one day it's fixed, so I could just ask permission to raise my hand. So considering that this is going to be 4 times faster, Jen, what is your prediction to getting rid of the residue in the reservoir?
Well, so the equipment's 4 times faster, but when you couple that with, we plan to operate it more times of the year, more hours of the day, because it's one of these things you just turn on and an operator can go operate in the plant and just monitor the thing, because it's got so many less moving parts, and it's so self-contained. I think, well, instead of, it's hard to say right now, but we could probably put together an estimate based on what we think the increased production is, plus the increased time of that increased production compared to the volume of solids that we have. We could get a calc on that and bring it back to a future meeting.
And Peter, we have done that, but I haven't shared it with you yet. So
apparently we have that.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Well, yeah, that would be kind of nice to hear that, because I know, Peter, that was a big project for you, to be able to do that, since you got in your hand a problem that was like rising for a long time. So I'm pretty sure that would be a great number. That would be very interesting and rewarding for you, since you've done so much to remove those debris.
And thank you, board member. I think the thing that I'm more excited about is knowing that it has such a connection to impacting taste, odor, and hardness. Being able to, again, take away another thing that over time has caused more of a degradation in taste, odor, and hardness. It probably didn't happen immediately. It's one of these things that's built up over decades as the pond just got too full. I think that's the thing that's more exciting to me, is that we're really digging into all of the pieces that we think are causing those problems with the water product that our customers consume, such that like I said a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, that in the next couple of years we should be seeing the effects of those changes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Peter or Adam? My memory's not great, but I'll mention, I think we did have a hauling problem a number of years ago and did have to use special landfills. And so I'm guessing the relaxation of the standards may be the explanation here. It would be interesting if we just aren't testing at the same levels as we used to for whatever reason. But again, my memory's not great, but that's what I recall. All right, with that, can I get a motion for item 5B as written?
I'll move.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to 5C. And Sarah will take it from here.
Actually, Sarah is not here today either, because she also has COVID. So we got Josh in the room for you at least. So thanks, Josh. But Sarah's off tonight because she's a little bit sicker. This is the design contract for the interconnects with Denver Water. This is a project that like I've said in the past, is one of the most critical resiliency projects that we have for our system. It really creates the backup plan for us if something catastrophic happens. Before I move on, I did want to point out that in the room is Cliff Stevens. He's our other engineering supervisor. He is the project manager on this, and if there's some question that I'm unable to answer, I'll probably kick it over to Cliff, but I wanted to recognize Cliff since he's been advancing this project. So we've been working on the agreement with Denver Water. We anticipate that agreement going to council next week, actually, which is an excellent step forward in this, is to get both Denver Water and the city of Englewood to agree that this interconnect can move forward. So with that last step from a governmental agreement perspective imminent, we wanted to move forward with the design so that we could get these designed and constructed as fast as possible. You can see on the map there that the red is Denver Water and blue is Englewood Water. So when they call us the donut hole, it really does look like a donut hole. I mean, it's a little bit of a weird, with that DIA thing, it looks like a weirder donut than probably it used to, but we're basically fully surrounded by Denver Water. So the ability for us to have a backup interconnect from them really helps us with any kind of, like I said, catastrophic failure. We're looking at 2 interconnection points. There used to be historically a couple interconnection points, but they were abandoned several years ago. We're not sure exactly why, but you can't reuse them because they're so old. And so I think we're rehabbing one, and then one of them's pretty much a new interconnect. Next slide. So you can see these are the 2 locations. What it essentially does is it helps us provide backup to zone 1 and zone 2. And so that gets backup water to all customers. So if we were to lose a main transmission main or lose the pump station at the Allen plant, something that, again, is one of those significantly catastrophic issues, we would be able to turn one of these on or turn them both on and then be able to feed water off of Denver's system. We would pay them for that water, but it would be a way for our customers not to experience an extended service interruption because we have that connection. So Jacobs is the engineering firm that did the conceptual design on these, and we started this analysis as part of an on-call task order through Jacobs, and they've done a good job getting us to this point. So now we're going to split it off and move forward with them for the final design contract. And you can see all the reasons why. They understand the requirements. They've already been involved in the project since its concept, and they've done a good job with this project so far. So the contract to get this to final design is not to exceed $464,533. Next slide. Any questions?
Peter, what's the process for putting one of these into action? Do we call Denver Water and they open up the valves? Can we do it ourselves? What happens when we actually have to use it?
I believe it's in the agreement, and Cliff, maybe correct me if you know this, that there's a procedure that's outlined in these agreements that first of all clarifies what constitutes an emergency, and if it does constitute an emergency, brings both entities together at one of these connection points to open up the valves and ensure that the water is flowing right from one system to the other system. Did I get that right, Cliff? Is there anything I missed?
That's correct. We first have to contact, we first have to contact Denver Water, and there's a 24-hour contact in that agreement. That's spelled out.
But when you actually turn them on, you have to have both crews there to make sure that it's, that what's happening in our system is working, what's happening in their system is working. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So did I hear correctly? Like it would take 24 hours to be able to?
No, they have a 24-hour phone line. So if it happens at 3 in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Thanks.
I hope it's not 24 hours.
Yeah, but that's what I thought. Thank you.
I would anticipate that there's a couple hours, but in those situations, we should have water still in our tanks that would be able to serve while we're getting one of these turned on. They're designed to be able to be executed on fairly quickly, because again, it's because there's some catastrophic emergency.
Thank you.
Yep.
One other question, is there a big maintenance burden on these interconnects, or is it, once it's done, you don't have to?
No, not really. I mean, it's really just a couple of valves and a meter, so we'll probably have to go out and once a year, take a look at it, test it, make sure that everything's operable, but no more than that.
Gotcha.
Peter, I just had a quick question. On the chart you had at the front, on the donut hole, is Englewood the only hole in that donut?
I believe so.
Seriously, that's pretty incredible.
That is the foresight of the Englewood founding fathers back in the 40s and 50s to basically create our own water system. And whereas all those other entities essentially fell into a contract with Denver Water, Englewood decided to maintain its own system. And when you look at our water rights portfolio and you look at the system that we have in place, it's a really good system, especially once we clear out this backlog of deferred maintenance that's been building for a couple decades. I would expect that in 5 years or 5 or so years that this system is going to be back on a really, really solid ground with a really strong portfolio that supports it from a water rights perspective.
Very interesting. All right.
Can I jump in real quick and just make one point? So on here, the IGA will be going to council on the 18th, and this contract won't be going at the same time because it's for the design. Just want to make sure we point that out.
All right, thank you. All right, can I get a motion to recommend the city council approve by motion a professional service agreement for the final design of the Denver water interconnections in the amount not to exceed $464,533?
Move.
I'll second.
second.
Give it to Don.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. No old business tonight. Staff's choice. Peter, anything besides the look ahead schedule?
I do actually have an item and a slide that I wanted to pull up. It's what I alluded to earlier, which is the results of the appraisal-based analysis for the Centennial Water and Sanitation contract. So if it gives you some background, this contract's been in place since 2003. It's a 100-year contract. It has 20-year renewals. So in 2023, we did our first renewal of it. But within that, the way it escalates the original pricing, and there's a dozen or more different elements that we charge for, whether it's different types of water that we sell them, it's different infrastructure that they use, it's McClellan Reservoir storage. There's all kinds of aspects of items that we charge them as we deliver and store water for them in McClellan Reservoir. And within that, the way the prices were set in 2003, there was a provision that allowed them to escalate based on CPI every year. So every year in January or February, the CPI would come out and then the pricing would change. Well, there's another provision in that contract that allowed for every 5 years there to be what's called an appraisal-based analysis to make sure that the CPI level is consistent with what the actual market pricing is for water and those systems. And when I first took over in 2020, it was in March, so we had just accepted the CPI. But as we started to look at it, we had realized that we had never looked at an appraisal-based analysis. It sounded like it was discussed at one point, but it is a long and complex process to get it done. But at that time, I felt that this was something that we should look at because it had been so long, and you know, water markets have changed over the years. And so in February of 2021, we initiated the appraisal-based process. And so the great thing about that is once you initiate the process, that's whatever the results are, it goes back to that date that we initiated. So that set the time of when this all started. And if you recall, as we were going through this process initially, there was a disagreement about the incorporation of water quality into the appraisal. We had a discussion with council. We went to court on this issue. We did not win that court case. The judge essentially ruled that an appraiser can use whatever elements of the water that they deem affects the value as part of their appraisal. And even though we think that the contract says we don't guarantee water quality, the way the court interpreted it was, even though the contract may say that, it doesn't mean that the appraisal itself shouldn't consider the quality of the water. So we accepted those results, moved forward with the appraisal. There was a process by which we could both agree on one appraiser. That did not happen. Centennial got their appraiser, we got our appraiser, and then there was a several-month process to choose a third appraiser, which is part of what's in the agreement. This is the process if we don't agree on an appraiser. So that all occurred over the course of, after that court case. That probably took another 6 months. And then finally, earlier this year, we initiated the 3 appraiser appraisal process. And those results finally came back in late October from the 3 appraisers. And essentially what the contract says is you take the 3 results, and if they agree, then that's the number you go with. If they don't agree, then you average them. So we averaged all the results for each one of the elements and ultimately ended up with the results that you see on the table. So when we look at a retroactive adjustment of what this process yielded for the city of Englewood, on what we sold in 2021, the appraisal adjustment up was $683,000 more dollars on that water and infrastructure that we sold and leased on in 2021. In 2022, that rose to $788,000. In 2023, so 2023, we took the adjustment amount through October 31st. That's what we just billed them for, which is the retroactive part. That equated to $681,000. That's what you see in that third column. That fourth column, we still have a few more things that a few more acre feet of water that we'll sell them this year, as well as infrastructure charges. And so we estimate the income or the total build this year for 2023 to be $3.691 million.
Wow.
If you look at the bottom, so the total adjusted appraisal amount was $2.1 million. That's retroactive back to 2021. So our patience, even though it took so long, we didn't lose anything for it taking it. We just had to be patient. We just issued that invoice. I would expect that we will get paid either shortly. I've talked to Centennial and they're on board with this and they plan to pay it. And then you can see in 2024 what it means, which is our total amount when you adjust it is probably somewhere around $3.8 million. So by doing this process, if you look at 2021 water sales, that upper left cell, it's 2.6 million to 2023 estimated year end is 3.691 million. It essentially translates to between $750,000 and $1 million a year additional revenue every year. So it took a while, but it was a worthwhile process, and it has definitely yielded a positive revenue to our water fund.
Thank you, Peter.
I am so happy to report on this one. This one has been a long time coming, and there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to make this happen.
Thank you.
So thank
And I would say this makes up for the big Dry Creek diversion project.
I'll take it.
Peter, Peter, this time, what triggers then the next evaluation? So assume over the next 10 years, water continues to rise more than CPI. What do we need to do to not wait, 20 years to look at this again?
So essentially the way the contract is written is either party can trigger one of these every 5 years. So this one was triggered in 2021. And so all of this appraisal based analysis is all 2021 dollars and then escalated. And so the next time that it could be triggered again is 2026. So if we start to see that water is somehow becoming even more expensive, or we think that it's getting farther out of whack, we can initiate it. Or if they think that they're paying too much and there was some premium, they can initiate it. So the next time would be 2026.
I think is there anything do you have any thoughts for how you assure that question is asked and answered in 2026? Because I'm guessing this just wasn't something that was actively thought about, and you're showing there's a lot of lost revenue on the, in the past now. Water under the bridge. Sorry, I had to try.
Money under the bridge. I think the difference is, sometimes the first time is always the hardest because you don't know exactly what it's going to take. And I think the fact that we have gone through this process, and yeah, it took almost 3 years. We learned a lot in that process. We definitely, it's not so scary anymore in terms of a process to initiate. So what would trigger it to come up again is essentially we have the way utilities is now structured, there's an environmental compliance unit within within operations that reports to Josh. That's Chris Edelstein. And so under that position is ensuring that all the water rights accounting associated with this lease, and so, or with this lease agreement. And so by not just having one staff person understand this, but by having the staff built out in a way that there's the consultant, the engineering consultant, our legal consultant, areas that are built out to understand that this is a thing that we pay attention to, and we have systems in place to pay attention to it. I think that's a lot of what's fixing a number of the issues with utilities as a whole, is just building systems that survive the people that are in the positions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to imagine that water inflation does not exceed general CPI over the foreseeable future. So, but regardless, we just need to have the discipline to make sure we ask the question at that time, I would suggest. But I think you've answered. Cool. Any other questions? There's no motion here. There's just informational, but any other questions? Great. Thank you. That's good news. Board members' choice is our next item. Anything any board member would like to raise?
I'll just raise that this is my last meeting. It's been great serving on this board, but Member Ward is taking my place as council appointment to this board. So thank you, Member Ward. So I started when I first started on council in 2019, 4 years ago, and it's been amazing to see how much has changed in that time. This was before Director Van Rye was Director of Utilities, and so the board was all different staff, I think, and clearly like was being led by an interim director, and not actually addressing any real issues, to go from now to having, lots of items at every meeting getting caught up on stuff. So it's been a lot of fun to be a part of that whole process. And so if I'm at these meetings in the future, it's because I just want to be in it for fun.
Thank you for your contribution, Joe.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, then I will say happy holidays to everybody, and this meeting is adjourned. Good evening.
Have a good night.
Bye, everybody. Thanks. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
I hope you feel better.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sarah.